it was kind of, I felt a little like, all right, okay, I see what's going on here. I'll respect you, but also like, ow, ouch.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. My name is Reesa and I'm your host. We are talking to real families about real stories here on The Real Family Eats, where we've got food for thought and thoughtful food. So let's eat. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I have my wonderful guest, Andy. Andy is here. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us and being willing to be a guest on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Risa. It's so nice to see you again. It's been a while since we've seen each other. Risa and I go back. We went to school together, and it's just so nice to see her. So,
Yes, too many years
a little
ago.
bit of,
Don't tell them how many.
yeah, no.
We're not going to reveal that. Just
Yeah,
kidding. This is real.
exactly. The gray hairs on the side of my head will give you a little clue, but
Right. But Andy, can you, for anybody who doesn't know you like I know you, can you introduce yourself for us?
yeah, absolutely. So my name is Andy Pollock. I'm a chef. I live in Sonoma County, California, and I am a new dad, new-ish to a one. I'll say one and a half. He's going to turn two in November. So I'm in the thick of it, and I am enjoying the ride very much. I've gone through different stages, and different stages have been my favorite over others. But I am here to talk about my experiences as a very new dad in the throes of, um, you know, almost being a toddler.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, you are in it. Like
Yeah.
those are some years for sure. I remember remember them. But okay, I would love to hear more about your story. Before we do that, this is our shameless plug section. So, is there any kind of socials that you want to share with us, or anything that you're doing that you want us to know about?
Yeah, sure. So, I recently I've been a chef for a food company up here in Northern California. It's called Mezzetta. We're on social media, and actually, really a cool part of my job is that I do all of like our social media content, like our recipes. Yeah, when
Okay.
I was living down in LA, I was doing that on for a lot of different websites, on TV shows and stuff like that. The whole Hollywood thing. And then
Uh-huh.
we moved up here to be closer to family, and I was able to work with this food company, and it's been so amazing. They have really good Italian, Mediterranean goods, olives, peppers, pasta sauce that we'll use in a recipe we're sharing today. So definitely check them out. Give them a follow on social media. You'll see my face, you'll hear my voice, you'll see my hands. And then just follow me if you'd like. It's just my name, Andrew Pollock, on Instagram. That's really kind of where you'll find me. It's just pictures of food, my dog, and my son.
Wonderful. And yes, we'll have all those links down in your show notes, so make sure to check those out if
Cool.
that resonates with you. But that's so cool that, if you do find a recipe on there, it sounds like it'll be coming straight from this guy right here.
It
That's so
is, yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Some of them are, a little bit more, complicated, but really a big part of my mission as a chef currently is to inspire people who don't have so much time to prepare a meal, and how
Mm,
just a few simple ingredients can make something feel extraordinary.
yeah. Which, I mean, I feel like you just defined a parent's life. Like, we do not have time sometimes to do kind of a 5 course like meal.
I used to have time to do that. And also, I also kind of
Right?
changed when I became my career, because before I was just cooking at home, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make all this elaborate stuff. I have all this time and all this
Mm-hmm.
money without having a kid.
Right? Money,
And
what?
yeah,
You're a parent now, though.
and then when I actually started doing it for a living, even before we had our son, I started simplifying the way I cooked at home. Even just to make
Okay.
up for time, because you get exhausted doing the same thing every day. You don't really want to do it when you get home. So now I'm even more cognizant of what people are really looking for in terms of recipes.
Mm. Very cool, which I think that's a perfect lead in. So tell us what recipe you're sharing with us today and a little bit more about why you chose this specific one out of all the
Yeah.
options.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a tortellini soup. So it is a really comforting meal. And the one thing I love about this recipe is it's very budget friendly. You only really
Mm.
need 5 or 6 ingredients, and you don't have to measure anything out. Right? You can be feeding your kids. I'm lucky right now that my son kind of is strapped into a chair as he eats, but oftentimes you have kids running around you, and you
Hmm.
literally just add a, we'll talk about it when we get to the recipe, but it's just like a quart of this, a jar of this, a container of this, a container of that, and it all happens in one big pot. And you can kind of not think about it while you're trying to do something else.
I love it. And I do just have to say, so I usually take my kiddos to go grocery shopping when I'm getting ready for these podcast
Uh-huh.
episodes. And I had my 10-year-old today, and he said, Mom, what are you making? And I said, Where Andy is going to be teaching me tortellini soup. And he said, So there's turtles in there? And I said, It's called tortellini soup. And he said, Yeah, turtles. Where do you get turtle meat, Mom? And I said, so I thought he was doing a bit because he's in that age where he
Yeah.
likes to joke with me. So I was like, oh, I got it from the store. And so I was like going along with his bit. And then we got in the car and he said, no, but for real, Mom, like, where'd you get this turtle meat? And I
Hold
said,
up.
wait,
Hold up.
wait. I was like, do you actually think there's turtles in this? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, no, but I said, I thought you were doing a bit. I said, I was playing along with it.
Hey,
I said, no,
I
there's no
love.
turtles.
If I haven't met your son, but I can imagine he could sell a bit.
Yes, right. Well, and so I said, well, if there was turtle in it, I mean, would you actually eat it? And he said, well, it's coming from a chef, so I'd at least try it. And
Yeah.
so it was just,
Don't tell him turtle soup
it,
is a real thing.
I know,
It is.
right? We won't.
It's in
I
like
said, but I
I
said,
think
no,
that,
for right now.
yeah, in like New Orleans, I think it's a very popular thing, turtle soup.
Well, I mean,
I've
he
never
seemed,
had it, but
I was impressed by his
yeah.
willingness, at least. He was all like, okay, like, let's have this
Well, now
turtle
you can
soup.
say, yeah, it is turtle, and it'll be just like cheese, and then he'll be like, oh,
Right.
turtle tastes like cheese. But yeah,
So,
so and it's really
yes,
comforting for the kids too. This recipe,
wonderful.
and great in the winter, but you can eat it in the summer, and you can eat it for a couple of days too, which is also a cool thing, depending on
Awesome.
how
Okay.
hungry everybody is. So
Yeah. Well, I got two boys that are
okay,
growing by the minute, so they consume.
yeah,
But granted, they're like many children, where their snack stomach is about 100 times larger than their
yeah,
actual like meal stomach. So we'll see.
yeah. Yeah, the and you can add, obviously it's like you can always add stuff to this, right? If you have like
Mm.
frozen vegetables, just throw them in there, and but that's
Yeah. Okay.
it's really up to people. It's customizable.
Awesome. So tell me what the steps are. I'll get things going while we chat a little
Yeah,
bit about your story.
sure. So yeah, start with in like a pot, like a Dutch oven or a
Yep.
Le Creuset, like you have there.
Perfect.
The quart of vegetable or chicken stock,
Uh-huh.
and the jar of pasta sauce. Just add those to the
Okay.
pot.
Perfect. Now I chose the wild mushroom version
Yeah, that's great.
of your because I like a little mushroom in there, so I thought I'd mix it up.
Thank you for the second shameless plug
Yeah,
with the pasta sauce. So yeah, this
shameless
is
plug.
I work for them, and we make recipes, and this kind of is one that I created with them, and I've adopted it into my own home. So yeah,
Wow.
add the quart of chicken
Okay.
stock, which should just be a box, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
all you need is that one box of chicken or vegetable stock. You can make it vegetarian, and then your sauce, and then you just add that to the
Perfect.
pot, and then bring it up to a boil, maybe like medium high.
Okay. Perfect. I can do that. All right. So while I'm getting things going, I know that for you, you've had a little bit different, a different experience in terms of some of the growth patterns, which happens fairly naturally in
Mhm.
that as kids grow, they're exploring who's safe, who's around them, who do they like, who do they not like. Um, and I heard you mention,
Oh yeah,
that's
it's
hot.
bubbling. It might
Yeah,
bubble on you too.
it is. Um, I wanted to make sure my pot was hot. But man, oh
Yeah, for
man,
sure. Yeah,
it
and you
like
could
for
always,
sure got hot.
yeah, you can either, oh, perfect. So this should
Yeah,
cool it
I
down.
got it going.
And now it'll just come to a
I got it
boil.
going. All right. Well, this is real, guys.
What's the
I
fun of
had that
cooking
pot
if you don't
on
get a little messy, right?
too high. So tell me a little bit about kind of your experience.
Yeah, so a big thing that I've been having, not an issue with, but my son has been going through is he is kind of playing favorites right now, right? So he, he's really into mama, and I get it. She is a wonderful mother, and she is the best, she is the best mom that I know, and she is very safe and comforting to him, and as am I. And we kind of there was a period of time where my wife was working on the weekends and I was working during the week. So I
Okay.
had at least 2 days and the nights throughout the week, but 2 whole days with him, just he and I. And it was really in that kind of like um just after one phase, 12, 13, 14 months. And I felt we were really bonded. We were, I would leave, he'd be so sad, Dada. I come home, he'd be
Hmm.
so excited, Dada. And that's like something, I crave just as a person. Is it's not the attention that I crave, but it's the love. He's my son,
I
and
mean, who
I
doesn't
want to.
like to feel loved? Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to also make sure that this is a house that's very um, you know, engaged in showing affection and
Mm.
just yeah, not that's I think I said what I was trying to say. So but now he's all into mama. And
Mm.
it's at first I was like, oh, it's just a phase, and I was like, man, he's like really doesn't want me in the room. Like he would like come like I would come home and he'd be like, no, go, and like point and get me out of the like go out of the room. He's he's
Really?
yeah, I mean he's a kid with gusto, and he's a my son is he was born, he was 9 pounds 12 ounces, so he's like the size of a 3-year-old, so he's also intimidating, really intimidating. He's like 100th percentile in height and weight, which is awesome. But
Really?
he's
Oh
like,
my God.
he's got like some intimidation factor to him. She's like,
Yeah.
no. And then my wife would leave and he'd cry and he would sob. And it just, kind of, it really, that was the hardest phase for me. As a dad in this early phase was dealing with that and just realizing that I need to now spend more time with him and put in more time and more energy and effort. And I think that has in turn kind of really made an even safer environment for him
Mm.
because, mama and dad are both, even when I'm, making sure I can leave work a little earlier to get home before bedtime, or I can, be try to be the first one up on Saturday morning to wake him up. It really depends on the circumstances, but, and I feel like it's really helped him uh, realize that mama and dada are both safe.
Mm. Yeah. Now, I heard you mention kind of there at the beginning that it was really important to you. It sounded like that love and showing love was very, very present kind of in the home. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of that mission it sounds like you were on?
Yeah, so we, as I feel like most parents do, you kind of have to have that conversation. Like, okay, what you have to be on the same team, you have to be on the same page as parents. Otherwise,
Mm.
it's not going to work. I know it's hard to always be on the same page because we are at the end of the day different people
Hmm.
who happen to coexist in life and grow together. But even with even it happens when you get married, it happens when you have a kid, and you have to. When we had that conversation, it's like, okay, we're going to make sure we're a very not a not, we're going to show him love. We're going to hug him when we can. We're going to let him hug us. We're going to let him sit on our lap. We're not going to be, any chance we can get, we're gonna show him affection. Obviously, we don't run into a lot of circumstances right now where we have to like discipline him. It's a lot of like,
Hmm.
no, don't jump off the couch. Don't put that in your mouth.
Safety
Don't.
stuff.
Yeah, don't slam the little like popper lawnmower thing. Don't slam that into the
uh,
ground. More of that kind of stuff.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure that's coming our way, but um, for now, we want to make sure that he is in a. The mission really was. I grew up in a loving household, and so did my wife. So it wasn't like something that we didn't experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just we. I think there's also a this newer generation of parents. Both parents are more present than in the past historically.
Yeah. And so to kind of go from making this decision, it sounds like, to really, emulate, like you said, this love and kind of the showing of the love, especially, and what that looks like to kind of then have, like you said, you worked so hard, it sounds like, building that bond. You're feeling like things are going good. And then to kind of have this all shift, I'm so curious kind of what your thought process is, what was going on in your head, when you were experiencing some of that.
It also kind of came at it was around a time where I think just in my life I was feeling a little like down in a way. I think it was.
Okay.
I think in that time frame wasn't anything like work was great. My relationship with my wife was great, but I think there was just I had lost a close friend had passed away. So I think I was
Mm.
still like kind of down in the dumps around that,
Yeah.
and it had kind of made me a little bit more introverted, or kind of more sensitive. I didn't think I was like gonna be like, my son is picking on me, like he was like that. But like you would with like another adult. But um, it was kind of, I felt a little like, all right, okay,
Yeah.
I see what's going on here. I'll respect you, but also like,
Mm.
ow, ouch.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because so many times I feel like, as parents, we're going through some of these milestones, and on a rational level, we understand that these things are, maybe normal stages, like you mentioned, that's something developmentally that's not inappropriate,
Yeah.
or that's not that is appropriate for his age. There we go, I got there. But at the same time, you're human and you have emotions and feelings. And I think kind of that sentiment that you made, like, ouch, those things do still hurt. Just because we're
Yeah.
parents and we're supposed to be the grown-ups in the situation doesn't make us immune from having very real feelings about that. And one of them potentially kind of that rejection.
Yeah, feeling. Yeah, I mean, rejection is something I'm not it's something that I'm used to. Sorry, that's what I was trying to
Mm,
say. It's something I'm used to just because in the past I was an actor, and that just kind of comes with that. And I think that was a reason why I kind of stopped doing that. And it must just be something internally that kind of has always been sensitive to that, no matter what it is. And I think
okay.
just the fact that it's something, it's somebody that you love and care for and provide for, and when they reject you, it's like it kind of is even a little bit worse, uh,
Mm,
because you've spent that time and energy and effort. You're rejected by somebody you don't know. It's okay, it's fine, whatever. You don't know me. You're rejecting me, whatever.
mm-hmm.
um not the right type, but the this, it's like,
Maybe a
dude,
little bit
like,
easier to rationalize.
dude, I like didn't sleep for months
Mm,
because to make sure that you like,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind
A
of,
lot of
I think
sacrifice
that
went
that's kind
in.
of tied with it. And it's not like, I do this for you, I love you, you love me. It's not going to be like that. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships just never are that way. But I think when, I don't know, when they're your own, like, kind of, you provide for them. That's, I think I already said that, but when you provide for them, it hurts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you mentioned there, though, is super important to remember, is um, that it isn't necessarily kind of a one-to-one ratio when we're talking about kids. And even as they continue on, that's something I know I've talked with other parents about, just the fact that it also does take an investment in the relationship side of things, not just like the providing side.
Hmm.
Yes, that's great, and that's kind of what we signed up for when we agreed to kind of bring these kiddos into our lives. However, that relationship piece and some of that, it sounds like kind of going back to what you mentioned about really cultivating an environment of love. I mean, that's that investment, right? Of being able to kind of pour into them, not just physical and kind of monetary things, but very much that emotional kind of mental connection as well, and building some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a tough time, but we got over it. It still kind of happens every once in a while, but we got through it. Is your liquid boiling yet?
That's not quite boiling. I turned it way down because I got scared.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I got scared
It's
off.
not every recipe can be foolproof, but this, see, while you're waiting for this to boil, you can be getting the kids ready for bed. You could be making their lunch for the next day. You could be doing, that's the beauty
Yeah,
of this recipe. And then
I love it.
when everything boils and everything happens in like 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'll also put his lid back on. That might help too.
Yeah. So once that comes to a boil, then you're going to add your tortellini and cook it in the liquid. That's the next step.
Okay. About how long am I cooking it?
Usually they take like, I think that whatever the package says, but usually it's like 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay.
Pretty
I can do
fast.
that. And then I know I've got some like salt and pepper. Am I just seasoning that once the tortellini's in there?
Yeah. Just like to taste at the end. I'm a big
Perfect. I
believer
can
in
do that.
just like adding, especially with this, you have the salt from the stock, if salt from the pasta sauce usually has salt in it. I know that
Yeah.
one does. And then the tortellinis are, and you could also use like ravioli with this too.
Okay.
And you don't have to, I know it's soup, but even in the summer, you don't have to turn your oven on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's helpful, especially right now. My oven broke.
Oh,
So I
really?
got to get that repaired. Yeah.
Oh,
Of
life
course.
never, it's always one thing after another, right? But it always gets
Absolutely.
fixed. And
Because
at the end of the day, it always gets fixed.
that's real life. Real life as a parent. So now I have to do everything stovetop right now or air fryer um,
Yeah.
until that gets fixed. But so I'd love to kind of circle back to, I know you mentioned kind of, rejection being something that maybe you aren't a stranger to, given the fact that you were an actor, and we're doing, you're kind of in that grind.
Hmm.
Do you find that because of that and the nature of the business, where there is a lot more rejection than there are yeses, that kind of maybe almost kind of accumulated over time? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was, um, it's not a easy business, right? And I did it
Mm-hmm.
just for a little bit after college and lived in New York City, and that's kind of like there's so many actors in New York City, um,
Every corner.
and every corner, every audition room is thousands of people, hundreds of people. You go in, you wait all day, you don't get seen, or you do get seen, and there's like thank you. It's never really works out the way you want to, and then it, not for everybody. I don't mean to say that.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. Some people,
Yeah.
I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I lost the drive to take that rejection. I think that
Mm.
a lot of people are able to, take that rejection and stick with it and keep going. And I was like, I'm just tired of being rejected. And I think, to your point, once I left that, I changed careers. So I went to culinary school, became a chef, moved
Mm.
across the country to LA, and started working in that business. That I found the happiness that I always knew that I needed. The meaning I was gaining success. I was being successful in my career. I was being successful in
Yeah.
something. I wasn't just doing something else while waiting for something else to happen on the other side. But I think once I did find that kind of path, or once the wheels were in motion, right, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
where I was to where I am now, um, I kind of bottled it up like most people do.
Okay. Yeah.
I like, it was so much. It was like so much like energy and kind of a rejection, but also rejection, criticism. You're kind of, it's kind of fight or flight, and all of that is so, it's like a very intense. It's a very intense feeling, if you know how to, if you don't know how to really handle that side of the, I just had a hard time handling that side of things.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that because of, because I just like threw it away so quickly,
Yeah.
it kind of just, uh, stayed within me. And I think, um, you know, time has gone on, right? Time heals
Hmm.
all wounds, as some people say, right?
Some,
Not
many,
all, but not all,
not
but
all.
some. But some you would know better than I would, but in terms of, you know, if that's a true fact. But
Yeah.
time has made it easier to deal with those kind of rejections and criticisms.
Hmm.
But like I said, when it's your kid and you're like hoping you're going to be like super dad and you're
Yeah.
coming in with all this energy, I'm like, I got the Lightning McQueen voices going. I'm like ready, and I'm still acting with him all the time.
Hmm.
That part of my life is actually, and this is not meant to be a tangent, but that part of my life, I'm so thankful for it because it's made what I do now even easier. Um, when I'm cooking and talking about what I do and recipes and all that stuff. Small tangent, but um,
That's okay. Real. The point is
bottled
real.
it up, bottled it up, and you know, uh, it comes out. It never goes away, even
Mm.
though the time has healed the wound. It's still there's still a little scar that's like little loose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A little pink still.
Yeah.
Now, do you think, because I heard you mention kind of the bottling piece of it, and had you stored that away, like kind of going into parenthood and then to kind of have your kiddo, um, again, something much more personal, kind of, was that a catalyst to kind of opening some of that up for you?
That made me more vulnerable to, you know,
Okay.
it's basically literally another person coming into your life,
Mm.
right? If you think about it, and it's you don't know how they're going to. I mean, I got along and get along really well with my parents, but not everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of hope that they're gonna, you know, it's that feeling you get when you have a kid, like, oh, I can't wait for them to be into this and be into that and be into this. But what if they're not? You have to be able to deal with that. But it's like, what if they're not into
Absolutely.
me?
Mm.
That's the part that's like, oh shit. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can cuss. But that
Real.
okay.
Again,
I don't know if I can
theme
cuss.
of the
But
day.
that's like
It's
the
real.
feeling you're like, oh, I hope they're into me. I hope they actually like me
Yeah.
because it's a different person. It's not. It's yeah, it's your flesh and blood, but it's not your like. They pick up your mannerisms.
Hmm.
I still have a long road ahead of me, though. I haven't even scratched the surface on that. He's
On the
just
mannerisms?
he just knows how to say no and more. Yeah, wait until they
Uh,
can say words. Then I'm in
right.
trouble.
And I think that's just it. And I think it's so valuable that these are even conversations that you're having with yourself now,
Oh
because you're
yeah,
absolutely right. Like as you continue on, as they gain more vocabulary, they become really good with that vocabulary, knowing just what to say in order to like get under your skin. And so being able to kind of even go in there, it sounds like having that insight, having that awareness that this is a battle wound scar that you
for sure.
carry, and that it may come up in other ways and it may try to kind of peek its head out. And I think some of the part that catches many parents off guard is when you're not aware that those things are coming up, and so then you're just reacting from that place and then
Yeah,
potentially doing or saying things that you look back and you're like, what just happened? Like I wish I could take that back, but the problem is life, and
yeah, yep,
things happen and we can't necessarily always take it back. And that first step, as cliche as it sounds, is that acknowledgement and that awareness.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm always been a person who just understands what's going on inside, but you know, you can't always predict how you're going to feel about something. Just
Yeah.
that's like you said, that's life.
Absolutely.
Are we
So
watching a
I'm
pot? We're
curious.
watching water boil.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
are we
are,
boiling?
but it's now boiling.
Yeah. So
Um,
okay. So
because I
now,
stopped watching it.
yeah. Now everything's going to happen, right? So there should be a tortellini. You can buy them refrigerated at the grocery store. There's filled with, I'm not going to explain to you guys what tortellini is, but uh, I use the cheese tortellini, but you can also use the spinach tortellini. There's ones that are stuffed with everything. Just add those in, and then basically you're gonna know they're done when they're all gonna start floating to the top.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Oh, you got the three cheese? Nice. That's a
I
good
did.
choice. I
Yeah.
love trying different flavors of pasta sauce with this recipe. Like you could probably do it with Alfredo sauce, marinara, vodka sauce. I mean, say for the kids,
Okay.
they're not, they don't put the vodka's cooked out in vodka sauce. You could use like a really cheesy sauce. Um, and then any stock, vegetable, chicken, depends on if beef stock. I wouldn't do though. That might be weird.
Okay. So no beef stock, but everything else, it sounds like we could get maybe
Yep.
creative with
And
it.
like I said, the one thing I love about this recipe, well, there's multiple things, but the main thing I love is that all you need to go to the store is buy a quart of chicken stock, a jar of pasta sauce, a container of tortellini, and then
Hmm.
a little box or bag of spinach.
Yeah, perfect. And I found these ones at the Costco. So many
Oh,
parents, if
perfect.
you're already going there,
Yeah.
they had they had the containers there. So I just popped one of those in.
I'm Costco's a dangerous place. We
Isn't
go
it?
for we go for diapers and we go for wipes, and then we end up with so many things.
$300 later.
Oh, I got
Yeah.
these amazing. If you're at Costco, I got these amazing. They're like ice cream sandwiches, but they're inside like a waffle. I think it's a Japanese thing. I don't know what it's called, but they look like really fun for the kids. They look like a cartoon fish, and the waffle,
Okay.
and inside the waffle is ice cream, and it's filled with like chocolate or strawberry. I'd have to look it up, but I picked this. That's the thing. I go and I'm like trying to get diapers, picking up fish, fish ice creams, not fish ice cream sandwiches, but yeah.
Yes, yes. I got you. I got you.
Desserts you
But
wouldn't find anywhere else.
again, I feel like many parents can probably relate to that
Yeah.
idea of going in,
And
like
that's
you
just
said.
me going through and being like, I want that. I want that way. I can't wait until my kid gets older. And I cave so hard.
Can I have that? Can I have that? How about
Yeah.
that?
I'm gonna
Okay.
cave
Yeah.
so hard on that. But yeah, so once the ravioli is well, not ravioli, tortellini, but you could use ravioli is floating,
Hmm. My
then you can
turtles.
add the spinach. You don't have to add the whole container of spinach. If you really like it, obviously go for it. But I just throw in a handful at a time until because the whole box of spinach gets you like a quarter cup. So
Yeah.
and it will
It
wilt
wilts
down.
down. Yeah.
But if your kids
Perfect.
aren't into it, right? But you could, like I said, throw in some frozen peas too if you want, peas,
Hmm.
carrots, etc.
Okay. So I got my salt and pepper. I'm doing that now,
Yep,
right?
that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
If you like spicy
Perfect.
things, you could add like chili flakes here too.
Yeah. So that's been the theme here. My theme, at least, is that so many of these recipes that parents are sharing have the chili flakes in them or
Hmm.
jalapenos, and I'm wimpy, as I like to say, and so I constantly like all these recipes are spicy.
Yeah. So yeah,
Okay,
that's why you put chili. I always say like you
that'll
can
be
always
Josh's
add more.
bowl.
You can always add more. You can't take it away. So if you're serving this for your family, just put the chili flakes out on the side. Someone could, like we at a pizza place. You just keep it on the
Yeah.
side. You can add cheese, but you got to add cheese and Parmesan cheese at the end.
Okay, I got that.
That's the move. That's the move.
I'm
And
fine with that one.
if you have basil, did you get fresh basil?
So I do have the basil, yes, and I can put
Oh,
that on
sweet.
top.
Just like I like to like rip up the leaves and just put them on top.
Okay.
This is gonna like this recipe will make you when you kind of jazz it all up, it makes you look like you're at this fancy restaurant serving this
Ooh,
soup that's been reducing on the stove for hours and hours.
I love
But
it.
with jarred
Okay,
pasta sauce, it's got good flavor.
yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, so my tortellini, they're floating here.
perfect. So yeah, add the spinach like a handful or two at a time.
Okay, perfect.
Sometimes the whole container can be a lot, but I like the whole container. I'm a big spinach guy, so
Yeah,
it's gonna
we like spinach in
it's
the house.
obviously like most things with spinach, it's gonna feel like a mountain, and then it will wilt down.
So while this is wilting, though, I'd really
Yeah.
love kind of to circle back to, um, I heard you mention for you that you have started kind of that journey of healing and figuring your way kind of through it and handling some of the rejection. Now, I know you mentioned when you shared with me a little bit about your story, that there's you mentioned specifically kind of a dysphoria that
Hmm.
that perhaps might be some of the rationalization or maybe a little bit more information rather of kind of
Yeah.
why maybe rejection is something that for you maybe cuts a little bit deeper than, like you said, kind of your person standing next to you, if you will.
Sure.
Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I think it's really important and I want to make sure to kind of chat a little bit about it.
Yeah. So, um, I my whole life, I'm sure you could probably tell by now that we're talking, but I've always struggled with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and that is definitely like it. It doesn't mean I'm myself a hyper person. I feel like I'm an even keeled, person energy wise, at least lately. Can't speak about the past, but my brain is very hyperactive. I'm
Mm,
always thinking about something else while doing something else or talking about something else. I'm thinking about something else. I'm awful at remembering names, and something that comes that a lot of people I know, and I've had friends that we've talked about this too, is I think it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria, if I'm saying that correctly. But
hmm
I'm it's like if I'm rejected or uh, feel like it's kind of like that like, are they mad at me phase,
hmm
right? You're just like, oh, I don't know, and then at the end of the day, you're just like overthinking it, and because your brain is telling you, and it comes with a little anxiety too, but your brain is
Yeah.
telling you one thing while you're thinking about another thing, and but it also like a dysphoria, because it's a dysphoria, kind of also like it's like crippling almost, that
hmm
feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think and one of the reasons why I appreciate you being willing to even talk about it is because it is something that even in the mental health community is we're gaining more knowledge about it. It's not necessarily something that's been widely um, advertised or even kind of thought of in that way.
Yeah.
And um, and what's so you're absolutely right is that it goes to for some people that do experience some of these symptoms that it does go to that extreme where as you mentioned it's oftentimes accompanied with rumination and you're just
Yeah.
it's hard to get unstuck from that. It does cut a little bit deeper because again there's um, that difficulty, that ability that your brain is so good at kind of spinning this narrative and really kind of making you believe it.
Yeah. And yeah, you think your brain, like you said, you're trying not to believe that this thing is happening, but something in your brain, in your brain or in your psyche, whatever is telling you, like, or I don't know, and I think, and it's recent too, which
Mm,
is funny. It's recent within the past like couple of years. Um,
okay.
and I think, and a couple of years, I mean, like the past like 2 years, because I feel like having bottled up those kind of feelings towards, in the past, they're now starting to come out.
Mm,
And I don't know, it's just, you get older, right? Things change. Anxiety levels
yeah.
go up, they go down. There's could be a whole like 6 month period where I'm just feeling like everything's good. I'm chill. This is great. And then there's another one where I'm
hmm
like, what is going on? Like, and that's life as an adult, right? Between work and families and just, personal stuff. But,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you kind of gotta make sure that I'm very big on, meditation and making sure that I take care of myself and spend and take moments of silence and try to quiet the thoughts in my brain, and it really helps, and I
Mm,
recommend anybody, to look inward and take care of yourself in that way in terms of
Yeah.
meditation.
And I love that you went there because that leads perfect into kind of a question I was going to ask you is have you found particular resources or supports that for you have been super helpful in being able to kind of get on the other side of this or at least have more understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really, the the main thing that helps me with it is just kind of taking moments to quiet whatever's in my head, whether it be the thoughts that are maybe true, I don't know, but they're in my head, they're like super true. They're like really, they're real.
Yeah.
And just, reminding yourself, like, be kind, being kinder to myself, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah, absolutely.
And
Are there
breathing and,
mantras? Oh, go for it.
yeah, and breathing and just, just taking a moment of quiet. And you can get wrapped up so much in that, like that dopamine addiction that's like you just want to be scrolling on your phone. Like I caught myself doing that for like, especially during COVID. Like
Mm,
that was like it's like we were just chilling, in our place. It
yeah.
was just me and my wife. We didn't have our kids, so we were watching TV and scrolling a lot and forgetting about your mental health. I think that is obviously probably an issue that is bigger than most people realize.
Yeah.
Um, Coming out of that part of you know this timeline that we live in, but now, especially with my son, it's really he's kind of taught me to, or made me, not taught me, but made me stop. And like the other day we were on a walk and he just like wanted to look at a flower for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And like normally I'd be like, no, we gotta go. Where are we
Uh-huh.
going? Why are we just sitting here? And I was like, no, let's just look at the flower. let's
Hmm.
just let's just hang, you know
Yeah.
so
So maybe even challenging you to kind of
yeah.
take that minute, take that pause
How'd it
that
turn out?
maybe it,
Is there a good amount of broth in there too?
yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the broth is a really good part too. And the cool thing about this, like, so like we're still growing with food. And
Hmm.
when this sits in the fridge, if you have leftovers,
Okay.
the tortellinis will soak up all that, like the liquid. And then you can
Mm.
just eat it, like heat it up and eat it as is. But like for my son, I just like serve him the tomato saucy soaked tortellini. He loves it.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to try it as well. Um, so I know you mentioned as far as some of those resources, you mentioned also kind of like a
Yeah.
really talking to yourself, it sounds like in a little bit more of a compassionate way.
Yeah.
Is there a particular like mantra that you found that for you really resonates?
No, I, maybe I haven't found it yet, right? But
Okay, that's fair.
I've just been, taking the time to breathe and,
Hmm.
realize that these are only small things in life. There's way bigger things going on in the world. Not going to get into, anything like that, but there are way bigger things, but we can't forget that we're not small. Like we are our world, and especially in our
Mm-hmm.
family. So you can't forget about that, even if other things are not as even if this you feel like this isn't as serious as everything else going on.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing you say is actually something that I tell many folks when they do kind of get caught up in those brain narratives, which is, really finding ways to fact check what your brain is trying to tell you. And so sometimes it does take having like an outside perspective and grabbing a trusted person to be able to say, okay, hang
Yeah.
on a second, like is this real or is this my
Yeah, for
brain being
sure.
really good?
And well, and I
Um,
know I realized that I didn't even know what RSD was, because to your point, it was something that's new, right? It's coming up
mm-hmm,
more and more
it is.
lately.
Yeah.
And it actually came in a really great conversation that I had with friends who experienced the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of, misery loves company, but it kind of makes sense why we all are, we all hang out, because, we feel that same thing, but in that, and this is a good tie back. And I don't know, we did this, and I'm so glad we did it. It's kind of a tie back to what we said about my son earlier, is that it it's a safe space.
Mm.
It's a safe space to be. You feel comforted because you know that you're not the only one going through this. And I feel like parenting, that's the same thing with you and your spouse.
Yeah, 100%. And I heard you mention, misery loves company, but I think there's so much to be said about finding that environment that helps to validate and normalize some of the things that
Yeah.
you're struggling with. I mean, that's the whole inspiration for this podcast for me, is that idea of wanting to shout it from the rooftops that these things, these struggles, like, I promise, like, you're not the only one there. You just
Yeah.
might have to find that community that, like you said, is a safe space, is willing to actually get real and talk about not just the unicorns and rainbows. Do those things exist in parenthood? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But to say that that's how it is 100% of time, and kind of that what we get fed, like you said, scrolling on social media, it can be really, really easy to fall into, look at all these people and, oh, they've got it right. They're doing
Oh
it so
yeah.
perfectly. Like, it's hard not to look at those things. And like you said, kind of going back to the rejection of like, well, then what's wrong with me?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so
Big time.
finding that safe space. Yeah.
That's yeah. I'm glad you're doing this, because yeah, it's good to know that you're not alone in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Is there any, last parting words, any aha moments or little nuggets that, if you're kind of looking back on some of these things, that you would offer yourself, or even offer anybody
yeah.
else who kind of goes, hey, I really relate to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. But it's easy to forget, that when you are in a very early stage being a parent, and which I am, I have a lot more ahead of me. When you're in the early stage of being a parent, you still have to make time for maybe not yourself in a materialistic way, but make time for yourself in a mental health way,
Yeah.
because you get so caught up in, and as a dad, moms have the hardest job in the world, and it's a full-time
That's
job,
true. Don't
even
sell
on top of,
yourself short.
it's a full-time job on top of a full-time job. um
Yes.
but you know um I try to be as present as possible, and in that time frame, I think I was so present that I forgot about myself, and which
Hmm.
led to a couple of years of just dealing with some anxiety and some RSD, and some of that stuff that, I wish I could go back and tell myself to just, like, hey dude, remember to breathe. It's gonna be okay. Your kid's gonna be safe. Your family loves you. You're you know and yeah.
Yeah. And guess what, Angie? I've been doing this long enough. And I've worked with hundreds of kids, and I have not once ever met a kid who was struggling or having issues because their parent took time to do some self-care to really make sure that their
Yeah.
health and wellness were there and were present. Like, that's not the
Yeah.
reason. So we can kind of take that worry off the burner, that that's not going to be like us, like you said, kind of pouring into ourselves is not going to maybe lead to all these things that our brain tries to convince us is going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
I have not met a single kid, like I said, that was the
It's good to
reason
know.
why.
It's good to know.
Well, Andy, gosh, I really enjoyed our conversation, and
Yeah.
your willingness to share this with me and share this yummy recipe that I can't wait to try. I really do appreciate you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You too. It's an amazing thing that you're doing. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everyone, we will see you next time. If you or anyone that you know is struggling with any of the topics that we discussed in today's episode, make sure to check out our show notes for support and resources. You can get help. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode of The Real Family Eats. If you're a parent ready to share your real life parenting story, make sure to reach out to us in our website found in the show notes. And that goes for today's recipe, social medias, support, and resources. All of that can be found in our show notes. So make sure to check them out. And make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe, and stay up to date on all things The Real Family Eats. I hope you'll join us next time for more food for thought and thoughtful food. Enjoy your eats.